You think you remember the story of Archie's birth. You remember the framed easel on Buckingham Palace steps, the polite smiles, the press releases. Neat. But what if I told you the neat story was stitched over a dozen missing threads? What if behind the velvet curtain there's smoke, fingerprints, and edits to the public record, and no one is willing to say why? Stay with me. This isn't gossip. It's a trail of public documents, contradictory announcements, and a handful of sources that keep pointing to one cold question. What really happened the day Archie was born? I've pulled the latest public records, mainstream reporting, archive photos, and social chatter so we can separate the plausible from the theatrical. I'll tell you what the official record says, then what didn't add up the moment the story hit the world, and finally, why keepers of the story, the palace, and the couple still haven't fully shut the door on the mystery. When your family is a monarchy, every minute is a public fact. The official page for Prince Archie of Sussex lists his time of birth as 0526 on Monday, May 6, 2019. That is the timestamp the monarchy channels published and that most mainstream outlets used. This is crucial. The monarchy treats the moment of birth as part ceremony, part legal fact. It becomes part of the record that flows into everything from titles to honors. But pretty fast, other sources began publishing a different hour. That jitter, a 3-hour swing in public reporting, is the first crack. In an institution where every jot and tittle is normally nailed down, a 3-hour discrepancy is eyebrow-raising. It's the tiniest thing that makes big people ask, who's controlling the clock? On the morning of May 6th, Buckingham Palace released a statement saying Meghan went into labor in the early hours of this morning. An announcement will be made soon. That note set the expectation: labor, then birth, then a carefully timed reveal. But for insiders and many journalists, the timeline didn't hold. The palace's own follow-ups indicated Archie had already been born hours earlier. People who watch palace methods closely said it was odd to announce labor after the baby had already arrived. That kind of mismatch makes people wonder whether an attempt to control optics ran into reality, and why the palace, By tradition, royal births have a visual moment: an expectant mother leaving a hospital, the nation waiting on the steps, a brief photo call with a relieved you-do parent. Archie's didn't happen that way. There were no hospital steps, no crowd, no immediate photo op. Instead, 2 days later, Archie was shown to the press, inside Windsor Castle, in a highly staged room, with one photographer and one reporter admitted. Photos looked polished. The moment felt staged rather than raw. For a monarchy built on ritual and witness, that disappearance of the hospital moment created the vacuum that curiosity and suspicion rushed to fill. Think about the vibe. New parents are usually disheveled, tender, a little off balance. The Windsor room photos looked practiced. Insiders described a controlled atmosphere, like a brochure shoot, one called it. That matters because when you remove the messy human parts of a life event, the public loses the natural witnesses that make a story credible. Why stage? Privacy is valid, but privacy usually leaves small, verifiable traces. A hospital confirmation, a nurse's statement, the attending physician's name. The absence of those traces is what turned ordinary caution into something the public smelled as performance. If you want to bury doubt, you don't tinker with paperwork that's supposed to quiet it. Yet that's exactly what happened. When Archie's birth certificate was published, it carried anomalies. On Archie's publicly released birth certificate, the section where the attending doctor's name and signature normally appear was blank. Later, an edited copy of the certificate appeared, with Meghan's full given name removed and replaced by her title. Harry's entry was changed too, in subtle ways. Who requested those edits? Was it palace staff? The parents? The hospital? Initial reporting showed conflicting answers and spokespeople passing responsibility around. The net effect? The document that should have ended controversy instead amplified it. Then there's a photo, a Getty image that went viral among skeptics that some observers said looked odd. Folds, peculiar shapes, a bump that seemed to change across appearances. Getty, the agency that supplies the image to publications worldwide, stood behind the photograph's authenticity, saying it wasn't edited. But even with Getty's defense, the image became a lightning rod. When the visual you're selling as evidence is contested in the court of public opinion, the story's foundation starts to shift underfoot. Getty's statement didn't soothe, it merely confirmed the photo existed while leaving interpretation to the crowd. Keep in mind that silence is a tool, but silence is also a vacuum that imagination fills. According to sources inside the palace who later spoke to journalists, the couple and their communications team opted for privacy and control, limiting what the institution could confirm publicly. That decision had trade-offs. Instead of a short, clear answer to simple questions, the public got fragmentary statements and eventually partisan explanations on both sides. Silence that's meant to protect instead fueled speculation, because when you refuse to answer small questions, the small questions get bigger. And here comes one of the most explosive pieces of the story. In the Oprah interview, Meghan said conversations were held about how dark Archie's skin might be, implying a racist undercurrent to some palace concerns, and also that Archie had been denied a princely title. Those comments reverberated around the world. Reporting by major outlets documented the allegation and the palace's measured response. The concerns raised were taken very seriously and were to be addressed privately. The allegation itself changed the stakes. A birthday mystery suddenly became infinitely more serious because it touched on race, power, and institutional guardrails. Whether you see it as accusation or revelation, it became a lens through which every other oddity was viewed. Now here's a spicy and important overlay to everything. In recent years, among tabloid coverage and certain social threads, claims have circulated that palace staff quietly launched an internal verification review tied to Archie's and even Lilibet's birth records. Not a public inquiry, but a private internal checking of timelines and documentation. I want to be clear. These claims have mostly come from tabloid and commentary pieces and social videos rather than from official palace press releases. They are, however, persistent enough and detailed enough to matter because they describe exactly the sort of inside-the-walls verification you'd expect if senior staff were trying to reconcile contradictory public accounts. Put the pieces together, and you get a pattern. A labor announcement that doesn't align cleanly with the recorded birth time, conflicting publicized birth times, no hospital photo call to provide immediate verifiable witnesses, a staged in-castle reveal that looks polished rather than raw, a birth certificate with blanks and later edits, a single Getty image that provoked extra scrutiny even as Getty vouched for it, an allegation that race influenced discussions about Archie's title, and, per tabloid reporting, whispers that palace officials asked for a private internal verification review. None of these elements alone proves malfeasance. Taken together, they become a pattern of control, erasure, and story management, the exact tools institutions use when they want a narrative to read a certain way. For those who trust institutions, these are mistakes and overzealous privacy choices. For those who distrust them, they look like cover-ups. Public documents and official pages tell us dates, times, and the formal steps taken. Archie's officially listed birth time, the hospital name on the certificate, the weight. These are facts. But other things documents rarely capture. Internal phone calls, who asked for a change to a certificate, what was said in private briefings, and why a palace press release used the phrasing it did. So we have to be careful. We can litigate the public record, but we can't read private motives out of the paper. This is why those tabloid reports of a palace review matter. If true, they are the best mechanism for producing the missing internal explanations. If false, they're gossip that fills the silence with speculation. Remember the environment. For years, the couple alleged relentless press hostility, intrusion, and racist undertones in coverage. They say the institution that should have protected them did not. With that context, their push for privacy is defensible. They were trying to protect a newborn from global frenzy. But protection can slide into opacity when it's absolute. When a public role intersects with a private life, the public sometimes reasonably expects a minimum of verifiers: a name on a certificate, a hospital statement, or a small routine photo call. When those bits are absent, the public fills the vacuum, often with the worst-case assumptions. This is about more than one family's privacy or one infant's paperwork. It's about institutional transparency in a modern media environment where private lives of public figures collide with historical rituals and legal facts. When a monarchy, an institution built on script and witness, produces a story with blanks, the public is justified in asking why. The more sensitive the subject, race, a child's status, institutional behavior, the more important it is that the answers be clear. Here's the rub. Millions wanted to cradle that new baby in their minds and bless him as the latest kid to beat a history of headlines. Instead, they got an elegant picture with missing stitches. You don't have to be cynical to ask for the seams to be shown. You just need to ask for the facts. Because when the record is clean, curiosity ends. When the record has holes, curiosity becomes a charge. And charges either find proof or they find more questions. So where does this end? Maybe with a public clarification, maybe with silence that finally decays, maybe with documents released under oath, or not. But until someone with authority steps forward and says, here's the full story with receipts, the mystery of Archie's birth will remain one of the slipperiest little unsolved items in modern royal drama. Part ritual, part rumor, part institution trying to balance protection and accountability.